All right, so this week's topic of Amuna Mondays was complacency amongst growth. And before we begin, the class is dedicated to my younger brother, so Lole Nishmat for Yosef ben Devora. May his neshama have the ultimate aliyah. So the topic of complacency amongst growth. The reason I chose this topic was one because it was the new year, January 1st, and I felt like the new year often brings like input and outlook into the past year and going into the next year. And people set goals up, people reflect on the goals that they've previously had. And a lot of the times it comes down to just being honest with yourself. And sometimes you accomplish the goal, sometimes you don't. But the thing I noticed the most was that the concept of growth doesn't have room for complacency. And it's important to understand where complacency is coming from. Where is it stemmed off of? And yesterday we were talking a lot about the ego being fuel, like the ego being a significant factor of like, oh, I'm good, so I'm happy here, I'm fine here, I like where I'm at, I like the person I am now, or all those things. And because of that, it lacks the motivation and encouragement to actually move forward and continue down the path of growth. And if you think about it, the generation that we live in now is technically way more advanced than it was, let's say, 50 years ago. But yet, some would actually agree on the fact that we're in a far less fortunate position. And you would think, how is that possible? How do we have all these things that back then they would pray for and wished for and dreamed of, and yet we have more issues? It just doesn't appear to make the most sense. But the truth is back then, they lived in a world where you'd fix the problem, you wouldn't replace it. And we live in the day and age that we simply replace. That's the truth. It's like if my car breaks down, you replace it. A relationship's not working, you replace them. A marriage isn't working, get a divorce and replace it. And a house breaks down, it's like you're gonna just replace it. Insurance. Sit down. You're unemployed. Or you're not liking your job. You get into one disagreement. All right, you quit. And it's just like back then that wasn't an option. You couldn't just sit back and have things handed to you. You had to get up and constantly do things, make efforts, make movements towards the things that you wanted. And that's just really not a thing in our generation anymore. And because of that, it leaves this concept of complacency. It's just constantly just happy with what you have. And if you're not happy with what you have, it's just find the bare minimum. Live with the bare minimum expenses, live with the bare minimum of all these things. And it's just never going to get you to the goal that you have in mind. Obviously, a goal is something that's outlooking. You're looking further on. And to think that something like that is not in reach right now would result in the fact that you're going to stop and slack down and tone it down. The comparison I gave was understanding life as you're born on an escalator going the opposite way. You're not born at a disadvantage. That's not a disadvantage. It's just you're born into a life that you can't just sit back and not do anything. You can't just sit back and be like, oh, I'm going to take a day off. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. You can't do that. You really can't. Because the minute you do that, you fall into this comfort stage of, okay, I took off today, so I'm going to take off tomorrow. I did this, so I did that. Like, that's not how it works. It's going to be a lot more difficult to get back on after a break. But you can tone it down. Rather, instead of stopping, because if you can run up an escalator, get really close to the top, and then start catching your breath and breathing. And while you're doing that, you finally get enough energy. By the time you realize it, you're at the bottom, if not pretty close back to the bottom. When the truth is, if you just maintain a proper pace, you'll get it. You'll beat the escalator. And you know what? You might even get lucky with the escalator. It might seem in life like the escalator kind of needed some repairs. You know, it needed some repairs. And in that time of repairs, One can sit down and just take a break, or they can attempt to just, seize the opportunity of the fact that it's not there, and just keep going, push forward, and not slack off. But we live in that generation that's like, the minute you get an opportunity to take a break, seize the opportunity and take the break. And it just sets you up to get into the stage of complacency. It's ego. It's completely ego fueled. I'm happy with where I'm at. I like who I am. This. I maintain a certain image, and it's just, when you realize that none of that matters, you actually start enjoying and living your life. And that's for relationships, that's business, that's a lot of things that you find yourself complaining about. Ask yourself, why am I complaining? And a lot of the times it's because other people around you are complaining about the things. It's not really you complaining. It's just people around you. They're giving their opinion. Your parents saying they don't like the job that you do. Your friends saying they don't like the career you've chosen, or the girl you're dating, or the guy that you're seeing. But a lot of the times it's not you. We don't spend enough time by ourselves to even realize what we want. It's more of like what other people want. What are other people planting in our head and telling us? And when you understand that, you'll understand how the world's operating. The world's operating with one goal. The goal is to eliminate the concept of ego. Eliminate the ego. And if somebody's extremely haughty and oh, everything's about me, I need to show off, God's going to make you stumble in front of people. Why? Because that's one way to humble a person that thinks they're all that in front of a lot of people and cares about others' appearance. If somebody, how do you humble somebody that's wealthy? Take away their wealth. When you understand these things and you find yourself in these predicaments, you need to ask yourself and be honest with yourself. Shoot, what was it getting to my head? AKA, was the ego getting fueled? And if the answer is yes to any of those things, doesn't mean you deserved what's happening and there's nothing. That just understand that and use that as a reference for yourself and actively work on it, and you'll understand. You'll see those things will get eliminated. There's no reason for the test. There's no reason for the thing that you're dealing with. It's just understand there's a cause and effect, and there's a reason for everything that God is doing. Not always will we be in a position to justify that. What was mentioned at the class was the whole thing happening in Israel. And again, it's an extremely horrifying thing, but at the same time, it's not my position to give an opinion on. In my eyes, it's like, why would this ever happen? How can God allow this? Blah, blah, blah. I can sit there and ask a million questions on why, and reasons to hate, and reasons to turn my back on God. I could, but the truth is, I can put the exact same effort into trusting and believing in God and understanding the same God that I pray to every single morning and thank for all the blessings that I've received in life, and thanked for the releasing of the hostages that were released, is the same God imprisoning them. Is the same God that put every struggle in my life in front of me. All the pain that I've experienced allowed all that to happen. It's the same God. And when you understand that, you find yourself in this predicament of how do I react? And a lot of times you can't assess the situation properly. You can't come to a conclusion. You end up just having to do a mistrial, and it's mistrial, and eventually you realize, wow, life is still going on. So it's not my place to come to any conclusion. And that immediately is when life becomes peaceful. So I just want to give everybody a blessing going into this new year, that it's filled with self-honesty. That throughout this whole entire holiday, that this whole holiday, this whole year, this whole experience, this whole break of, some people were off of work, some people are going back to work, it's just understanding the fact that this year may bring a lot of struggles. It may bring a lot of different things, variables. But at the end of the day, perspective and just consistency is the key to anything. It's the key to receive every single thing that you want, every struggle that you're experiencing. It's just switch your perspective. Like I said, it's the same God that you thank and pray for about the best things and the good things that happen to you in life is the same God that you're praying to about the negative things and things that you feel are not, don't make sense. Don't just look at God as a blessing. He's the blessing, he's the solution, he's the issue, he's all of the above. You can't just refer to him as when things are bright, I'm going to refer to God. Because the minute things aren't bright, you're going to turn your back on him. So again, Lule Nishma for Yosef Ben Devorah. Hope you have a great week.